is wonderful that your community of faith is considering becoming a learning site. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video and to explore this possibility. As you learn about what it means to be a learning site, you will need to take time to discern whether this is something you want to do. As I present information, let's keep track of questions for you to consider on a separate flip chart off to the side. Once I've finished explaining, you can review those questions and take the time you need to discuss and prayerfully discern whether becoming a learning site is right for you. First, let's talk about why the church needs learning sites. So ministry is a complex and demanding profession. It requires an openness to learning of all kinds, including the development of extensive skills and abilities. That's why candidates for ordained ministry and designated lay ministry must complete supervised ministry education, SME for short. SME is a significant learning experience where candidates focus on achieving learning goals in order to broaden and deepen their competence for leadership. Each year, roughly 40 to 60 candidates need a learning site in order to fulfill the SME requirements of the pathway to ministry. Communities of faith often ask, what's in it for us? Well, candidates doing their SME often approach their role with enthusiasm and fresh approaches to what it means to be the church today. You may have a candidate who wants to explore possibilities and is open to making mistakes and learning from them. The question for you as a community of faith is whether this potential is exciting and you want to be open to navigating all of the possibilities that a candidate may bring, or whether this would take you in a direction that doesn't match what you are looking for in a minister. So here is the first question for the flip chart. Are we excited to be a part of shaping the future leadership of the church and to learning alongside a candidate for ministry? Let's talk about some practicalities. One of the main responsibilities of the learning site is to set up a lay supervision team. We will refer to this as the LST. The LST is a group of 3 to 7 people associated with your community of faith who support the candidate in their learning. This group meets roughly once a month with the candidate to reflect on what the candidate is learning and to help the candidate better understand the inner workings and ministry of the community of faith. They also participate in writing evaluations that are submitted to the candidacy board. The LST is trained by someone from the Office of Vocation, so no need to learn all the ins and outs right now. Another question to add to our flip chart. Are there 3 to 7 people in our community of faith who would be suitable and willing to participate in an LST? The candidate also has an educational supervisor who they meet with regularly to reflect theologically on their experiences. The supervisor is chosen for the candidate by the Office of Vocation, so it too is not a detail that you are responsible for. You need to know that if you appoint a candidate doing their SME to fill a ministry position, that they will be spending time not only on fulfilling their job description, but also on the requirements for completing their SME, like working on their learning goals and having meetings with their supervisor. Compromises on how they allocate their time will be needed. Here is another question for our flip chart. Are we open to accepting that our minister would need to dedicate time to meet with their educational supervisor and their LST, work on their learning goals, and other possible requirements of the SME experience? What you also need to know is that if you decide to become a learning site and post your position as open to candidates for SME, that there are differences depending on the stream of ministry and the candidate's program of study. All SMEs must be a minimum of a half-time ministry position where the candidate serves in an appointment. Let's walk through each scenario. People preparing for designated lay ministry do 3 years of SME. Twice a year they travel to St. Andrew's College in Saskatoon for a 10-day learning circle in March or April and again in October or November. They also complete coursework through distance learning, so they usually serve in a half-time to three-quarter-time appointment. Now, someone preparing for ordained ministry might be a student in the 5-year Atlantic School of Theology summer distance program, going to Halifax for school for 6 weeks each summer, and the rest of the time serve in an appointment and complete coursework through distance learning. A candidate in this program could serve all 5 years in one setting, but usually they are required to experience 2 different faith communities. As a learning site, you would, at the very least, make a 2 to 3 year commitment and provide a half-time to three-quarter-time appointment. Another program for preparation for ordained ministry is through St. Andrew's College in Saskatoon. Students there need to complete a 20-month SME in a half-time appointment. They also have school-related work to complete in their own time. Now, candidates for ordained ministry who complete the required program of study in a residential or on-campus program at the Vancouver School of Theology, Emmanuel College in Toronto, United Theological College in Montreal, or the Atlantic School of Theology in Halifax are required to complete 2 years of SME following graduation. These candidates can serve in an appointment that is half-time, full-time, or any amount of time in between. They can do their 2 years of SME in one place or in multiple settings, which is determined by the candidacy board. You will need to decide if you are willing to be a learning site and offer an appointment for 1 year or 2 years and advertise your ministry position accordingly. Now that you have heard all of this information, let's add 2 discernment questions to our flip chart. Are there particular scenarios that won't work for us? How long of a commitment to being a learning site are we willing to make? Okay, just one more piece of information to explain. There are 2 grants available to support SME learning sites. One is a moving grant. If you appoint a candidate who lives more than 500 kilometers away, you can apply for a grant to help with the moving costs. And there is a grant to support a pastoral charge with financial barriers to enable them to increase the number of hours per week of an SME appointment. So for example, a pastoral charge that can afford only a half-time salary would use the grant to increase the ministry position to three-quarter time. Let's talk about your next steps. Make sure to spend time reflecting on and discussing together the questions on the flip chart. If you need more information about any of the details presented in this video, then refer to the handbooks found on the United Church website that describe things in more detail. This includes the Candidacy Pathway Supervised Ministry Education Handbook and the Learning Covenant Handbook. These 2 are the ones that will be most helpful. You can also ask the Office of Vocation Minister in your area if you need further explanation of the information. And if you decide that you want to be a learning site, work with your regional council liaison to create an appropriate community of faith profile to post on Church Hub. Thank you for sticking with me through all of these details. Being a learning site is not necessarily the right thing for every community of faith. It is okay to discern that this isn't what you want to do. And if you do decide to be open to appointing a candidate as your minister, I hope you experience a rewarding time of growing in faith as you learn together in ministry.